part of that self-care is let's get back in those minerals. Part of that self-care is, I think, loving up the body enough to listen to it.
You have to know that you are worthy enough to get better. You can do this miracle and more. What were those words meant to be? But we can be better. We have to burn it off and take our power. We have to be thankful every day, every minute for our power. 80% of what goes on in your body requires magnesium. Calcium will push away your magnesium, and that's equivalent to aging.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever felt exhausted, cranky, or fatigued, or struggled with anything at all, adrenal or thyroid related, then do we have the show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Carolyn Dean, the runaway best-selling author of the Magnesium Miracle and a little booklet that just may change your life, Total Body Reset for Your Thyroid. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today. How to reset your thyroid, reboot your body, and find the energy, health, and peace you deserve. That, plus we'll talk about a total body meltdown and what in the world a mighty mash and radishes has to do with anything. So welcome back to the show, Carolyn. Are you ready to shine?
Absolutely. And those were some amazing teasers you set out there. Let's go.
All right. Before we dive right into things, what does fair, fat, and 40 have to do with anything?
Oh, right. Yes. When I was in med school, the designation of a person with a thyroid condition was female, fair, fat, and 40. So talk about misogynist. And these days, okay, there may be people who fit that criteria, but 5 out of 100 people, men and women, have thyroid disorders. Most of them are subclinical, the cold hands and feet, a little bit of weight gain, often from fluid retention, falling hair, that's a huge one. And there are symptoms from head to foot because the thyroid controls our metabolism.
What has that bias done? Because it's something, I wasn't planning on going there today, but we're just going to follow spirit. And what has that bias done? Because yesterday I was in a interview event with Bruce Lipton, and he was talking about the placebo and the nocebo effect. And something tells me that having this bias is creating a huge nocebo effect.
Right. Well, it's the bias of medical diagnostics where they will wait till a patient has all the symptoms and the blood work and they're falling apart before they do anything. And what we try to do in, more natural medicine, and certainly me with my dietary supplement company, we try to give people those nutrients that are the building blocks to make their hormones or to make their energy and keep people healthy. So basically medicine has created this system where you have to be falling apart to get some help. And then what is the help? It's giving you drugs or surgery in a sense that is a misdiagnosis and then a mistreatment because they're ignoring the root cause.
Thank you. We're going to dive into the root cause today. I want to first start with the thyroid. And what exactly is the mighty thyroid and how does she help? I made her a female now. But how does she help?
Oh, well, she is located on either side of your throat. So some people, they'll get an enlargement of the thyroid. They'll feel it's something sticking in their throat even if it gets enlarged. It will get enlarged if it's getting weak. So it's about 5 to 20 grams, and 5 grams is about a teaspoon. So it's pretty tiny, and it responds to the pituitary in the brain pushing out a thyroid stimulating hormone. And the thyroid then is stimulated to make more hormones. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. And if the thyroid doesn't have the building blocks, which consist of 9 minerals and tyrosine, and there are other things involved, but those are the major ones. If it doesn't have enough of those building blocks, the pituitary will keep pounding away with higher and higher levels of TSH to try to get those hormones activated. And because allopathic medicine doesn't recognize the nutrients that are required, it ignores the minerals, it ignores the tyrosine, and just waits for the thyroid to collapse, the blood tests to get so bad that they give synthetic thyroid replacement therapy. So that's the disconnect. And actually, Michael, the disconnect goes even further, because natural medicine doctors, naturopaths, etc., they'll wait as well for the thyroid to crash and give like desiccated thyroid, natural thyroid replacement. So you see the problem. What happens with thyroid therapy in allopathic medicine is, as I mentioned, doctors wait until the thyroid crashes and the blood tests look bad, and then they give thyroid hormone replacement. And as I've said, if you have the nutrients, you shouldn't need thyroid hormone replacement if you have the building blocks for your own thyroid hormones. And unfortunately, the same thing happens with naturopathic medicine. They too wait for the thyroid to crash, but then they think they're doing a very good thing because they give desiccated thyroid or natural thyroid hormone replacement. So everybody misses the boat. And I kind of stumbled onto it, Michael, because when I made my stabilized ionic ReMag magnesium, I said, okay, I have to have stabilized multiple minerals. So I put together multiple mineral formula, and we got all the ions stabilized so they could be fully absorbed. And come to find out, 9 of the 12 minerals were minerals necessary for thyroid hormone production. And here I was on Armour Thyroid, 60 milligrams. I still had cold hands and feet. I was still high functioning. I never really dropped down in my energy because I have too much energy. But what happened within about 6 weeks is my hands warmed up, my feet warmed up. I started getting even more hyper. I said, oh my gosh, my thyroid kicked in. I'm making more hormones. So instead of doing what I tell people to do, instead of weaning off my Armour Thyroid, I just quit it. And I was fine, and I'm still fine. I was quite amazed, but I proved it then. We did a lot of testing on the ReMag multiple mineral formula. And to this day, our customers say, yeah, I was able to wean off my thyroid medication. And they're very happy for it because, see, what happens with thyroid hormone medication is they just go for T3 and T4. T4 breaks down into T3, so that's the main hormone molecule that medicine looks for. But there are all kinds of T's. There's all kinds of other stuff happening in and within the thyroid that we require that we don't even know. I mean, when I research, what is the function of the thyroid? Most medical texts or websites start with, well, we don't know exactly how it works. They finally come to some understanding that, well, the thyroid seems to help oxygen get into the cells and nutrients get into the cells. And it seems it goes to the mitochondria. And yeah, we know that the mitochondria makes our energy, because for the 8 steps of the Krebs cycle that makes ATP energy, 6 of those steps require magnesium. So I am huge about mitochondria, ATP, and, so what are they saying about the thyroid? Well, if you have enough thyroid hormone, it'll help your oxygen into your mitochondria and your nutrients. But what if you don't have those nutrients? And, what if you're not exercising? What if you're not breathing that wonderful air you have where you are and I have where I am? People just aren't getting the benefits. So anyway, that's what they say about the thyroid. And then they say, well, it controls your metabolism. And we know that to be a fact because clinically, if you have hyperthyroidism, you have too many hormones. And what happens? You get anxious. You get a little extra temperature. You don't sleep. You can get diarrhea, and your heart can go a bit crazy. You can start palpitating and even having arrhythmias. So that's what too much thyroid hormone does. And actually, we tell people to be aware of those, quote, symptoms, because when you're taking ReMag, it's going to help you, and you're going to want to be with your doctor and wean off excess synthetic or even natural thyroid hormone replacement. So there's my words for now. What do you have to say about that, sir?
Oh, my God. So many different directions. Let's talk about how many people are struggling with what appears to be a thyroid condition today. When Jessica and I were living back in Jersey and we're headed back there this week, we had seen some statistical report of something like 80% or 80% of women are struggling with hypothyroid. I have no idea if that's the case or not, but how many people do you guess are struggling with this today?
Okay, good question. I think I mentioned earlier that medically, they say the incidence of hypothyroid is about 5 in 100. If it were 80%, that would be 80 in 100. So, I mean, that's a big discrepancy. And therein lies sort of the problem between natural medicine wanting to pick up things before they get bad and allopathic medicine waiting for them to get bad. So what I think's happening with this, the 80% and some of the natural medicine world saying that it's an epidemic of hypothyroid and, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I think it's a bundle of what you mentioned earlier, Michael, total body meltdown. Because when your thyroid is low and when your adrenals are really frantic and trying to keep up with all the stress, and your sex hormones are also affected, with all the women now talking about perimenopause, women seeming to have hot flashes and menopausal symptoms in their 40s, and men, with low testosterone or low sex drive. It all bundles together. You cannot separate. When I was researching for my thyroid booklet, I think it's about 77 pages, Total Body Reset for the Thyroid. I read a couple of books, many books. One book was by Isabella Wentz.
We've had her on the show.
Isabella. So she's a PhD pharmacologist, and she describes her journey toward hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, autoimmune condition of the thyroid attacking itself. Why is this happening? But when you read her story, what she started with was insomnia, anxiety. I think she had leg cramps, all the symptoms of magnesium deficiency. And then there was brain fog, and there was fatigue and gut disturbance, all the symptoms of yeast overgrowth. So in my world, I talk about total body meltdown and thyroid problems, especially being a result of mineral deficiencies and yeast overgrowth. The mineral deficiencies, there's the 9 minerals that support the thyroid hormones being produced. And with yeast overgrowth, yeast in the intestines, when it overgrows, it goes through its life cycle, it produces toxins, and those toxins cross-react with thyroid tissue and block thyroid hormone receptors. We know this from immunology. We know that thyroid tissue and yeast toxins cross-react. So that's never a good thing to happen. But we also know that gluten can block thyroid receptors. Fluoride can, chlorine can, certain drugs can. So we've got a lot of things that are interrupting the proper functioning of the thyroid. So that's where, when you have thyroid problems and you consider that it's total body meltdown too, you have to support the adrenals, the sex hormones, and your thyroid. You have to detox, and you have to get rid of your yeast. So that's my, therapy. That's what I do.
People start looking, don't find anything. They keep looking, they don't find anything, keep looking. There starts to be an inkling, and then all of a sudden, and the autoimmune test, something comes back positive at that point. And they go, see, I've had it all along. The doctor just couldn't find it. And you're saying, no, early on, you had a yeast overgrowth, you had a mineral undergrowth, and then it built up for too long, and the deck of cards came collapsing down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it reads step by step with Isabella's story, and then finally they found my thyroid levels were low. And exactly as you say, she said, aha, that's what I had all along. And then they go into this, hundreds of things you have to do and avoid and take and everything. And it freaks people out. It seriously freaks people out when they hear people talking about, the 80 symptoms of hypothyroid. And they think, oh my God, what can I possibly do? But when you read these 80 symptoms, it's like 24 are magnesium deficiency, a dozen are zinc deficiency, and on and on and on. And then there's the yeast overgrowth. So for my work, with patients and then telephone consults, and now with my customers, I just try to say, it's more about the deficiencies and the toxins than it is about the whole world crashing in on you. And I thought at first, Michael, when I started saying, well, you may have total body meltdown, that people would freak out and be mad at me for, stamping them with this designation. But it just made sense to them. They feel like their whole body is against them. And when I can, kind of relate exactly what's happening to a person, then they say, oh my gosh, she knows what's going on. All right, now I'll listen. It's like it clears the mind of, I got to find a reason. Is it this? Is it that? And with all the testing and everything available and all the different practitioners with all their different, theories about what's happening, people go crazy. They spend a lot of money. They get told a lot of different things. I mean, there's one doctor out there now saying, well, under no circumstances should anybody with a thyroid condition take iodine. I think maybe they say Hashimoto's don't take iodine. It's like kryptonite.
Don't we need iodine for supporting the thyroid?
Exactly. But what happens with the high dose iodine therapy that somebody bombarded the internet with, the past even 15 years, you see, iodine can help breast cancer, prevent breast cancer. So everybody started taking all this high dose iodine. But what happens in the flow of minerals that make thyroid hormones, you start with iodine, and then you have to have selenium. If you don't have selenium, then the iodine stuff builds up and you have a reaction. So the person who says, oh, don't take iodine is forgetting about selenium and then forgetting about zinc and copper and molybdenum and magnesium. There are 9 minerals. And the problem is in allopathic medicine, and it seems in naturopathic medicine too, people can't think of more than one treatment at a time. It's like they can't compute. And that causes a real problem in patients trying to find out what's going on.
So I want to dive more into this and more into simple ways, because it's easy to be overwhelmed these days, Carolyn. It is really easy to be overwhelmed. And on that note, you mentioned that there are 80 symptoms. Let's talk about some of the key symptoms, because we're talking about energy today. And wait, what was that? And,
I missed it. I blinked.
No, when you startle easily, you too may have a thyroid challenge going on.
Startling. Oh, I know. When my adrenals crashed, when I was living in Manhattan doing AIDS research, and then the head researcher died, and oh my gosh, my adrenals just tanked. I went into early menopause, my adrenals tanked. You know, I'd walk up a street and my heart would start palpitating, and yeah, you know, the backfiring of cars in Manhattan, I was constantly like, you know, going like this. And when I finally realized I was magnesium deficient, I was able to, but then I had to make my own magnesium because it's non-laxative. See, I was magnesium deficient, but I couldn't take any magnesium because it would give me diarrhea. And I would lose more magnesium than I was ever taking in. So anyway, when I finally, you know, created the ReMag, got saturated with magnesium, I mean, a bomb could drop behind me and I wouldn't move. I mean, people notice that about me. I'm in a situation where, you know, you hear the banging, something's going to fly off and kill somebody, and I don't even look, and everybody else is jumping up. And so, yes, stress is the adrenal gland's way of, you know, trying to, maybe alert you. The adrenaline pumps up so you can fight or flee. But when you don't have enough magnesium to support your adrenals, the adrenals get trigger happy, and they'll just react to smaller and smaller insults or assaults. And the person just runs out of adrenaline. Then you get into the chronic, like, cortisol production, and that's your belly weight gain and you're lethargic. But that drags the thyroid into the picture too, because you want your thyroid to keep working. So they drag each other down. I call it like a tripod. Where's my three fingers? So the tripod of adrenal, thyroid, and sex hormones. And they all kind of affect one another. So what was your question?
The question the answer was in the question, which is some of the key ways that you begin to notice this. And so you talk about stress, you talk about starting easily. You talked about nervous energy, fight or flight response. We didn't really get into crankiness, which could be another one.
That's true. Yeah, golly, the what do they call it? I don't drive, so road rage. You know, the craziness of road rage, or, you know, when someone just snaps at you, and people there. I mean, I support a farm here. I do a lot for an organic biodynamic farm, and I even work in the market stalls a couple times a week. And, you know, people will come up all anxious, and they won't look at you, and they'll start saying, well, I need this and I need that. And I stop and I look at them and I say, good morning. How are you today? And they just, you know, they immediately get it. They immediately realize where they've been, and it hasn't been present. So, I mean, that's just, you know, a small little thing, but that's where a lot of people are in their irritability. They're not sleeping, Michael. You know, when your adrenals are that trigger happy, you can be sort of slightly woken by just sounds in your environment, so that you never get that deep sleep. You know, you're hyper alert, you're hyper aware, and you never get that. You know, it's like mothers and fathers too, with a newborn. You know, you have to be only slightly into your sleep in case your child wants you. You have to be able to hear the cry. So that brings up, actually, let me say this right now, that women, when they have a child, when they go through a pregnancy, they really deplete their thyroid. so that a lot of women, 3 months after a delivery, they can have their hair falling out, they can start getting cold hands and feet, they can start expressing symptoms of hypothyroidism. And one child will do it, but man, 2, 3, and 4 children, you need help with your thyroid. There's just no question of it.
So, and we're back in baby planning mode here. So you're going ReMag, you're getting a lot of magnesium in you if you're in baby planning mode, or if you've just had a baby. What else are you doing to support your thyroid?
Well, the multiple mineral, the ReMyte, ReMyte, because that has zinc, for example. And I've always said somehow in the beginning of my practice, which goes back many decades, I found that zinc was very important for postpartum depression. Zinc is also very important for the immune system. And there's a homeopathic remedy called Ignatius, Saint Ignatius bean. So Ignatia is for women who want to be the perfect mother and have the perfect baby and the perfect experience. And all 3 of those are impossible. So they beat themselves up, and some women even go into postpartum depression because they can't, nothing's perfect. You really have to be in a situation with your new baby where you go with the flow. You just have, and I wouldn't know that. I've never had a biological child. I've just had foster children. But my experience with my patients is that you really have to ease up on yourself. And Michael, look at the women now. They're trying to do full-time jobs, have a baby, and, have it all. And everybody loses.
I want to go to the spiritual side of things, because whenever I look at something, and thank you, Carolyn, whenever I look at something having to do with the body, I see the body as it's a reflection, it's a messenger. It's trying to teach and share something with you. And in the case here, you brought something up brilliant in your booklet, which is that you said that total body practitioners relate thyroid to time. And you said hypothyroidism is trying to slow time down. So I imagine if you're trying to juggle the baby, juggle a full-time job, juggle this, and be perfect at everything, you are going to slam the brakes on that thyroid.
Ah, perfect. Yeah, well done. I'll have to put that story in the book. I'm always updating all my books. Yes, exactly. Because we control our bodies. I mean, newsflash, you control every part of your body, including your thyroid. If you want to slow things down, you can do that. And it's the philosophy of total biology. It's out of France, and it's a parallel to German new medicine out of Germany. Conflict basis of disease. So what's the conflict that you described with this new mother? Trying to do it all, trying to make the dinner and maybe go to work and take care of the baby and maybe other children and the partner. So the conflict is just, how can I deal with it? Okay, then I'll just sleep 4 hours a night. So they start that. Well, I don't have time to eat, so I'll cut back. So they're always negotiating how to deal with the problem. And then it can get so bad that they do slow their body processes down. And then with hyper, it can be, someone just wanting to get something over with, a project or a job or a relationship. And they'll just push. Actually, the second big book that I read when I was writing my thyroid book was Amy Myers, Myers. She's a medical doctor, and she wrote about hyperthyroidism. And her experience in her medical training was that she just started to get hyped up, couldn't sleep, kept going to the doctors to try to find out what was wrong. And finally, she was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. I mean, I've had that experience with my peers in med school. We all got everything that we read about. I'm like, I've got this. Oh my God. I got the IBS in med school, and they didn't even have a diagnosis for it back then. So the stress of medical school, and in Isabella Wentz's case, her pharmacology school, it set off these reactions. And I guess just to say again, we control our bodies. So if we have a conflict, you better realize that conflict can appear as a physical symptom in your body. So whatever physical symptom you have, just sort of hark back. Well, is the pain in my neck due to someone being a pain in my neck in my life? Is the fact that I'm burping something that I'm just not able to swallow? I just can't swallow what's happening in my life. And it goes on like that. The body tells us everything we need to know. And at the same time, when I was in my practice in the early 80s, I started to see the first people with chronic fatigue syndrome, before it came out of that, where was that ski resort where they found most of the cases way back in the 80s. So what I have done my whole life is observe. And what was happening back when chronic fatigue started, I observed it in young women who were trying to work and trying to have babies and trying to do it all, and they would burn out. So we called it burnout then. But it was probably total body meltdown. And when I noticed that at first, I was working a 4-day work week so that I could study on my 5th day. I immediately went to a 3-day work week because I thought, I could be a setup to be a burnout victim myself.
What's fascinating to me, and we're going to take this in we're going to probably go into the energy side of things, or what I'll call the woo-woo side of things now, is, and I would put certainly your products actually in the self-care woo-woo side of things in the coolest way. Now we're talking about self-love, presence, breath, stepping back, talking with your body. Body, why are you exhausted? And the body's going to be like, no, duh, here's what's going on and why. What can I do for you, body? Part of that self-care is, let's get back in those minerals. Part of that self-care is, hey, you've got a yeast overgrowth. Part of that self-care is, I think, loving up the body enough to listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And instead, I mean, what our culture kind of has been trained to do is drink more coffee. If you get up in the morning, you're tired, drink coffee, for Pete's sakes. If you're tired drink coffee all day. I mean, I read silly mystery books or whatever just to decompress. All of them are drinking coffee constantly. And it kind of freaks me out totally, because what they're doing is overstimulating their adrenal glands and creating an adrenal collapse eventually. So there's this self-medication going on with things like coffee and alcohol, maybe alcohol to slow you down at night. And then there are the pills. Then there are the doctors who see someone who's not sleeping and gives them sleeping pills. So you're stuck with a sleeping pill prescription that, if you read the fine print, it says for short-term use only. What's short-term? 2 weeks. And what people are doing is taking them for years and years and years. And it is causing side effects, et cetera, et cetera. So we're self-medicating, and then we've got a culture that's putting down supplements constantly. When we need nutrients more than ever, people are saying, oh, well, you can get enough in your food, and they're pushing the the green drinks and 40 ounces of green drink a day should give you all your nutrients, but it doesn't, because the farmlands have been over-farmed. Farmers are not putting magnesium back in the soil, I guarantee you, in general. On the golf courses that I live around here, I look at the big containers that they spray on the lawns. It's minerals. The biggest tank is magnesium, because magnesium is part of the chlorophyll molecule, so they know it makes things green. But has your doctor ever told you to take magnesium? So we've got so many disconnects. It's very frustrating and very stressful.
It's cool that you said you worked on a farm, and I believe you mentioned biodynamic, because Rudolf Steiner would say, we don't grow crops, we grow soil.
Oh, yes. Yes, and the latest freak out that I had was over here in Lanai. Ralph Ellison has a big agricultural project. And what's he doing? Hydroponics. It's cheaper. It's not soil. They're not going to have dirt bacteria that you need. And actually, that comes to my radish experiment. Are you ready for that?
That's the next thing I've got. I actually have in my notes. So you read my notes through the etheric field. You read, switching gears briefly, what's the radish experiment?
So the farm that I help support, I buy them $80,000 tractors. So that's, yeah.
Wow.
And I'm buying them storefronts so they don't have to do markets all the time. But the experiment we did, we make a barley product, and it grows in huge, huge drums. And it's, I can't describe it exactly, but barley was in the Bible the most important grain. So we created what I thought was going to be a water purifier, because I had a recipe for a grain-based water purifier that you could trap in cement blocks. But what happened is, when we were growing the barley, just germinating it for 4 days in these great big rotating drums, the people who were, testing it with, they were tasting and testing, the fumes were all over the warehouse. People started to get healthy just being in proximity to these drops. And they started having incredible experiences.
I've had an experience like this. I'm like a kid in a candy store. Well, for me, it wasn't barley. It was alfalfa. Because I was feeding my horses and feeding them flakes of alfalfa. And my body was starting to crave the alfalfa. And getting that into my system, the body will tell you what you need. And you got people drawing in what they need from the barley. This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So because it's going to be very hard to do an experiment on the drops, because they taste different to everybody. They do different things to everybody. So what we did is we took the straw from the barley after we'd squeezed out all the drops. We took the straw and saved that up, shipped it over here to Maui, used it in the soil, and the first experiment was on radishes. So one plot, we dug in the straw, and not that much either. And the other plot, we just left it with radish seeds planted. And then twice a week, we would take the mash, the barley straw mash tea. We put a bunch of straw in a big barrel of water, and then we sprayed the experimental crop twice a week. After 26 days, the experimental mash plot, I call it Mighty Mash, yeah, it had 85 pounds of beautiful bright red radishes. The other plot, we could only get 3 pounds that looked decent enough to sell. So 85 pounds, 3 pounds. So what was happening? What I realized was happening is that the prime directive for pathogens that want to attack plants and humans, the prime directive is they go for the weak ones. They go for the weak and dying, don't have the nutrients. Okay, let's eat those up. They try to come over to the radishes and the mighty mash, and they say, oh, these guys are too healthy. I'm not going to bother with them. So they were spared weeds and worms and all the rest of it. Whereas with the mighty mash, it was creating bacteria. It's a probiotic because anyway, what we do with making the drops, we do work with a little bit of alfalfa. We do work with a little bit of airborne yeast. So there's a lot of fascinating things going on. Unleavened bread, and they say there's no yeast. Well, there's yeast in the air. When you're working on anything, yeast is rampant. And I'm talking about good yeast, not the Candida albicans yeast. So anyway, there's my radish experiment, which shows that the life force is important, and it's the life force in plants and in humans. The autoimmune disease, rolling back to autoimmune disease, your body does not attack healthy organs. It doesn't attack a healthy person. Autoimmune means you're already nutrient deficient and you have yeast overgrowth. If you get rid of those two, the autoimmune stuff goes away. I've seen it thousands of times.
Something clicked when I was reading your pamphlet book here, which is that you said autoimmune, there has to be a toxin the body is looking for. The body isn't confused. It's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yes, if your body's toxic, the body's trying to chew up those toxins and get rid of them. It's partly a detoxification. Very good. Very good.
You have a product. We can say this, right? And we can even take a note on this. You have a product called RNA Reset. Does that have to do with the radish experiment?
Oh, yes. So the barley that we germinate, the squeezed out liquid is the RNA Reset drops. Boom. Then we take the straw that's left over, dry it, and put it in the soil. Nothing is wasted. So yes, the probiotics and prebiotics, everything is in the barley straw that's in the drops, but we're not going to get people to eat straw.
Might get them to chew straw, yes. So, okay. Looking at it, and we talked about beforehand that this is a good doorway into the spiritual or energetic side of things. What can we learn from the radish experiments or from the RNA Reset when it comes to mental and physical energy?
It is I call the RNA Reset drops and the Mighty Mash kind of a life force enhancer. It's just pure life. And we learned that from the radish experiment and also from the testimonials of our customers. Some people don't trust testimonials until they do it themselves. I mean, we're all an experiment of one. So we just say to people, do the experiment of one on yourself and see how you feel. Try not to block your reaction. So the life force is what we're trying to enhance with something like these barley drops. I mean, we think it's kind of making a more pristine photocopy of our DNA, because what happened with the radishes was such an eye-opener for me. I mean, it was almost unbelievable how perfect these radishes were compared to something that's just grown with no enhancement at all. And the farmer, he has to use natural amendments to get rid of the worms and to make his crops grow. But he didn't have to do anything but put the Mighty Mash in his soil. So we're working with him on bigger crops and, things like turmeric, for example, that turmeric's become so important now that a lot of charlatans are selling turmeric that isn't even viable. And that's the problem we get into with the herbal industry is almost unless you grow it yourself or know the grower, you can't trust what you're buying, especially when most of the herbs used to come out of China.
People who are watching this, who are listening to this, they A, want more energy. B, they want better sleep. C, they're very empathic. People who listen to their show are very empathic, which means they're susceptible. We've had Dr. Christian Northrup on several times. Very susceptible to energy hoovers is my term for it.
Yes. The vampires, right?
Yes. How can becoming better mineralized, is that the term, topping up off the tank, getting yeast overgrowth down, getting the thyroid in order, how can this help us when hoovers come into our lives?
I think there's like a shield that you can develop when your cells are healthy. I'm sure that that's what's happening. We've had many customers who'll say they're in a situation where several people are dying and they're being pulled all kinds of ways, and they'll be told by their friends, well, take some ReMag. Well, how's that going to help? And they take it and they say, oh my gosh, it helped. I'm sleeping better. So then my body can restore itself overnight. So that's the shield, is getting your natural sleep and getting your appetite back and eating properly and all the things that people know intellectually. But yeah, what happens in the empathetic crowd, we talk about people who they give their heart and soul to others. They give it to the environment. They give it, the light workers. Remember the light workers that they were quite prevalent, about, and they still are, I'm sure, but I heard about them more, maybe 5-10 years ago. They are burnout victims. We have a ton of them as our customers, even our customer service people. We've got, a couple of light workers that just burnt themselves out. They just gave too much and they weren't getting anything back. And what we have to, there's a saying in the Bible, it says, for whosoever will. So I offer what I have, and if people want it, they can take it. I will not go trying to grab people or convince them or talk them into anything. You have to want to get better. You have to know that you are worthy enough to get better. I mean, when Jesus says you can do this miracle and more, what were those words meant to be? But we can be better. And this business about don't put God before you. Well, that means we are our own, minor God. And that's not blasphemy. That is taking full responsibility for who you are, how you can control your own environment, and you don't have to depend on other people. But that doesn't mean it has to be, wishy-washy, angels coming down. Seriously, Michael, I command the angels. I tell the angels exactly what I want. I will not put up with anything other than the perfect, asking that I have. But at the same time, I am fully aware that half of the time there's going to be some negative crap happening, and half of the time there's going to be some amazing crap happening. And what the human maybe has to learn is to deal with the negative crap and not let it touch them, and just be exuberant in the good crap, so that, we make the balance. If you get dragged into the negative crap, it's on you.
Thank you. And I'm so glad you brought up angels, because that's actually where I'm being guided right now, is to do more angel work, to teach more angel work. We came out with, it became the #1 Angels and Spirit Guide book on Amazon the automatic writing experience on how to tap in and plug into the angels. They're here if we ask for them. There's a quote. I'm not a good Bible quoter yet. Maybe someday. But it's something to the effect of Jesus and his disciples, and Jesus telling his disciples, if people want to come to me, I am here for them. If people don't, then I will be ready if they return. I will be there for him. That's what you're saying here. And a key component, whether we, and I am so not a labels guy, because to me, a label limits you, and literally nocebo, talking about Bruce Lipton coming full circle here, can kill you. If you go looking for a disease, you are owning the disease, not the solution. Go looking for health. Own the solution. This is a challenge I'm sure you've run into, I've run into, is people want to take ownership because it keeps you in victimhood, which means you don't need to do anything.
Right, right. And yes. Let me, something came to mind. You know, all this genetic testing, 23andMe and all that stuff?
Yes.
Hate it.
I am with you.
Yeah. Because what are they telling people? Oh, here are your top 100 genetic mutations that you have to watch out for. Now, first of all, most of it is BS. They don't know that. They haven't studied genes in that way. And I mean, Bruce Lipton would probably be the first to say that your genes don't control you. It's the things that turns the genes on and off. It's the triggers. It's all the nutrients and all the rest of it. So we've got a society now that is looking for the bad stuff. You know, how bad is it, doctor? So, okay, I'll tell you how bad it is. And then, like you say, they give up because how can you fight your genes? It's a horrible situation. All, you know, these smart watches that I do not have, they will tell you if you're having a bit of an arrhythmia, for Pete's sakes.
I have one. It'll tell me irregular heartbeat. I'm not, but what I like about mine, I'm going to show you mine. Here's the coolest thing about this one is it has, I don't know if you can see this. It has, let's see, there we go. A tortoise showing there. And if I get all riled up, I don't know if you can see the tortoise there.
Oh, no.
If I get all riled up, it goes from a tortoise to a hare and helps me become more present. So
here's my tortoise.
I love it. I always have tortoise energy with me. Always, always, always. So I use it as a tool. Or if I find it measures my heart rate variability. So it's going to let me know my stress levels. And so that's the only reason, because let's go back to the 23andMe. And I'm trying to find a way to say this as kind as I can to people, because whatever you've done, it's perfect. It's on path. No judgment, period, done deal. But I've seen way too many people have unnecessary surgeries or then turn and get upset with their parents. You gave me this gene.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Because they're told by the doctor, if you don't have even your breast literally taken out, you are absolutely, based on this, going to get breast cancer. You are going to die.
No, it's medicine taking over, over-diagnosing, over-testing, looking for a problem, looking for a reason. It's very sad. And at the same time, putting down as I've said many times, putting down supplements. I mean, think of T. Colin Campbell. I don't know how into him you are because he's supposed to be a vegetarian, but his latest book, what's it called? Oh, it's some crazy title, but it's a total put down on supplements. He says they're unnecessary. They're this, they're negative. There's some, quote, truth to it, because most of the studies are using synthetic vitamins and dirt-based minerals. They're not absorbed, whereas knowing that, all my vitamins are food-based, organic, all my minerals are stabilized ions. I mean, I know what to avoid, but all these studies, and he says, a study of one nutrient showed a negative effect. You're not supposed to study one nutrient at a time, because your body uses all the nutrients all the time interactively.
And that's the mechanistic, materialistic view, not materialism, but materialistic view, which I look at science when you study one thing at a time. I have no other word to describe it, Carolyn. Violence. It is the tearing out of one thing instead of the fabric of the whole.
Right, right. Exactly. So we've fallen into that trap. And, I don't really want to talk too much about COVID, because, the powers that be don't want to say anything negative about what's going on. But if our bodies are healthy enough, they can fight off anything they want to fight off. That's always been my position. But you talk about intuition. What did I do in the year 2019? I said, I have to double my inventory. I have to build a 30,000 square foot warehouse. I have to study immune building supplements. Even though I don't want to create a whole herd of supplements, I think I have to move on vitamin D and those things. And then what happened, the end of 2019, 2020. So if we listen, we are intuitive, we can hear, we can be ready and available. But in order to do that, we have to burn off the dross, DROSS. We have to burn it off and take our power. We have to focus our power. We have to be thankful every day, every minute for our power. We have to recognize the good and evil balance and learn from it. All these things, we have to look for justice. And if justice doesn't happen, we have to be ready to go to battle. And we have to stand with the elders. We have to know that we're protected. All these things are in place in the book of Revelation. That's kind of what I'm quoting right now. And I truly believe in our positive power.
Woohoo! I've been working with Wayne Dyer on the other side. I've been channeling him for classes this month. And today's theme for class is one of his most powerful statements. And I'm going to equate it to burn off the dross. Die while you're still alive.
Yes. Get rid of all the stuff, burn it.
So before I let you go, and this has been phenomenal, Carolyn, let's make things super simple for people. And I've got links down below if you want to try ReMag. I live on that stuff, meaning it has been so helpful in our lives. Remite, all of that. I've got links down below. But everybody is overwhelmed today. Okay, I'll speak for myself. I am very present, but it is so easy to be overstimulated and confused by the amount of confusion in the world around us. What is a simple way of what we can begin to take into our bodies to start to, I'm going to say, call it a, I don't know if you go this far, but since I'm going to go there anyway, to reboot our thyroid, to reboot our health?
Right. Okay. You've seen me drinking throughout. Hydrate. We got to keep hydrated. And I put a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt in every quart of water I drink. So that's your 72 minerals right there. And hydration, you take your body weight in pounds, divide that in half, drink that many ounces a day. It's a good formula. Don't fight it. Someone says 3 cups, someone says 8 cups. Just do it. And you don't have to drink that late in the day so you don't get up at night. But here's the key to minerals is when you start taking your sea salt and your ReMag and your Remite, those minerals go straight into your cells. And what do? They pull water in afterward, so that people no longer complain of edema. You're not getting up at night to urinate because the water is going into your cells, not, in one end and out the other. So hydrate, and then the ReMag, 80% of known metabolic functions are requiring magnesium. 80% of what goes on in your body requires magnesium. And I think about 80% of people are deficient in magnesium. The RDA is set very low. And at the same time, we're taking too much calcium. So calcium will push away your magnesium. And, the calcium RDA is too high and we're becoming calcified. And that's equivalent to aging. So I talk about all these things, you'll put some of my websites where I have 20 free ebooks and all, but that's where I start. Hydration, ReMag, Remite, and it's the Remite for the thyroid, the ReMag, and the sea salt for the adrenals. Vitamin C is important for the adrenals as well, but there's those minerals and vitamins you start with. The B vitamins are important too. I have a line product that has the B vitamins and a couple of detox amino acids. And then you look at your yeast overgrowth. One of my books, I have the questionnaires about yeast. You can decide whether or not, you having taken antibiotics or on a sugar diet and stress, if you have yeast overgrowth. And then you deal with it. All the talk about leaky gut and SIBO, the small intestinal bowel overgrowth, they're all talking about bacteria, and they're not looking at yeast. You have to look at the yeast. And what I've found for yeast, I simplified that. I get people on my probiotic antifungal called Flora Revive. Flora is one of my middle names. And Pico Silver, which is our stabilized ion of silver. So you have two antifungals going for you. And what's awesome about this Pico Silver, it's still used to this day on burn victims. It's the only thing that will heal wounds. Silver stimulates stem cell production in the bone marrow. So do that instead of going for whatever they're doing, stem cell therapies, which are using fetal cells for Pete's sake. So the Pico Silver is a real wound healer on all levels.
I've got to ask, Jessica woke up a few days ago and Sir Meowsers had stepped across her face while sleeping, and she had a slice down her face from a kitty claw. Can putting silver on wounds help with scarring, do you think?
Absolutely. I've seen the most amazing things. So yeah, just put the silver in a sprayer and you can spray her face like she sprayed your face earlier. Do that.
Positive karma.
Yeah. But for wounds, like for abscesses, for pimples, I get people just getting some nice clay and putting a few drops of the silver, making a little mushy paste and putting it on a boil or a acne pimple. Amazing stuff. You can spray it on, your sneakers for foot odor. I use Pico Silver and ReMag as my underarm spray.
Interesting. And I've never heard of your Flora Revive. Is that what it's called?
Yes. It's I have a natural antifungal, Saccharomyces boulardii. It's been used for infant diarrhea, so it's very safe, and dirt-based bacteria. So the combination is pretty awesome. And what I do, because I still love eating a lot of fruit, I make my heavy whipping cream and frozen fruit dishes like ice cream and, every day just about. So I'm not going to be strict anymore. So I take my Realign antifungal every day so that I can live my life. I don't know if we talked years ago how strict some people have to be to get rid of yeast, but
I was one of them. And
I know.
My journey, I was on Maui, neighbor to you, and you knew how my blood sugar, when you first met me, was crashing. So I spent 2 or 3 years on such a severe keto diet, nothing over 50 on the hypoglycemic or on the glycemic index. So no fruits, no nothing. Started to do much better, and then found I was living near an abandoned pineapple field. Oh boy, 1 month into the pineapple, and I had set myself back a year. I was so sick after eating. Oh my God, I would just take home pineapple. How many can you fit in a backpack? Screw the tops off of them, stuff them in. And then I went back to it, and now I'm in moderation. I feel much better. I was going to ask you the only personal thing, which is do I have to have a yeast overgrowth if I've still got fungal nail? Because that's the only thing I know of. Or can that just be fungal nail and not a yeast overgrowth?
Kind of, but what you do is you spray the Pico Silver on them as much as possible. Just spray the Pico Silver. So yeah, it's an association, but yeah, you'll take our Flora Revive and the Pico Silver and do that for your treatment. I call it yeast management. You know, we manage these things instead of killing them.
I like that because I've had countless clients come to me over really decades who are so neurotic about their diet, they're actually hurting themselves from the fear, from the cortisol, from the stress hormones they're creating.
That's right. That's right. And I think you said it earlier, Michael. I mean, the more you fear something, you actually are attracting the opposite. And, you know, it's like anger. You know, I should say, when I talk about commanding the angels, it sounds like I'm angry at them, but you can never do that. You can never approach anything with anger. So the saying with that is, if you're angry at someone, it's like you're taking poison. The anger is poison, and expecting them to die. So, you know, step away from the anger.
Thank you, Angel Carolyn Dean.
Oh, thank you, Angel Michael.
You're most welcome. Any last words you want to share today?
Oh, just that you're a wonderful person. You and Jessica are doing great things, and I'm very proud of you. You're like my big children. You know, I adopt everybody that big comes hugs. Near me. Yes. Yes. So I appreciate you very, very much. And Jessica. And your rooster.
Woohoo! He will have to meet you in person one of these days. He usually naps for interviews, but he was awake. He was quiet most of the interview. A few times he got overly excited with this lawnmower going on because he's not from lawnmower country. And his job is to protect the flock. And so when that lawnmower gets close, he's like, what is going on? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone who is listening, for taking action, for taking steps for your body. Because if we take this from a spiritual viewpoint, I want to say the earth is sick. She's not. She has a fever because she's going to shrug off whatever she needs to. We are sick as humanity because we are not taking care of ourselves on the inside first, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And so listening to this and taking action helps on each level, helps internally and helps the entire planet and humanity. So I can't thank you enough to everyone for listening and taking action on your own body today.
Yeah, thank you. Aloha.
Aloha and mahalo. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the Magnesium Miracle, and start feeling better today. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! I hope so much you enjoyed this amazing interview on magnesium, on thyroid, on energy, on your health, on the angels, as much as I did. I love how Dr. Carolyn Dean put it, said, I command the angels. If you want to command the angels or hear from the angels, get the #1 Angels and Spirit Guides book, written by me and the angels. The automatic writing experience, and learn how to go quiet, to tap in, to listen to the other side, and get angelic words of wisdom for your health, for your life, for your path, your purpose, your direction. Learn how to get words of wisdom from the angels, from your guides. Where do I go? How do I heal? How do I get more energy? How do I step forward in life? You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at automaticwriting.com with lots of bonuses. You can bring your receipt from Amazon over to automaticwriting.com as well. And be sure to check out your local bookseller too. Support the local guide. Then just bring the receipt back over and get the bonuses too. It's automaticwriting.com. If you love this interview, if you want to check out more, if you want to find out more about the angels, click that subscribe button. Click the bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows, YouTube premieres, and live events with me every Sunday night. Click here. Big thumbs up if you like this. Leave your comments below. Love you guys so much. Shine bright. Woohoo!